Welcome, dear Annabella. I'm going to pass the word to you. As you can see, we had some technical issues, so we got a little bit late, and I'm sorry for that. I'm going to show so that you can see everybody. So please say hi.
Hi, nice to meet you all. Do you listen when I talk? The sound is good for you?
More or less so. You have to speak loud, but I think it will work. Okay?
Oh, good. Okay.
It's supposed to be an interactive presentation. So every time you have any questions, please say, and we will address the question. Okay? So please, Annabella. Thank you very much once again, and you can now start.
Thank you very much, dear João Ribereite, dear friend of mine, for the invitation to be here with you all. Nice to meet you all. I hope you enjoyed watching the film. Please interrupt me whenever you don't understand something I say or want to make a comment. This is also valid for your teacher, Ribereite, okay? For film analysis, I will sometimes summon literary work that is at the origin of the film, the book by José Cardoso Pires, O Delfim. Both cinema and literature are different forms of language, and therefore semiotic systems with specific different characteristics from each other. And notice that we can perfectly understand the film without knowing that there is a novel that serves as a basis for it. Although the two artistic works are almost 40 years apart, the novel was written in 1968 and made in 2002, both evoke the Portuguese reality of the 20th century in the context of the rural world, inhabited by relations of dependency and incommunicability, without access to equal treatment. We can perhaps say that the greatest similarity between the narratives of the book and the film is that both do not respond. It is up to the reader, spectator, to penetrate the dynamics of telling and listening, and the miseries are like the waters and the ghosts of the lagoon. After all, a mastic with mold, mold, Portugality, a Portugal full of mold, very latent. O Delfim is a novel and an unfinished film due to the variety of final solutions, the social theme, the reflection of the female condition on the issue of May 68. This particularity invites the reader to penetrate an appealing and sensorial space and to romanticize, to become practically co-author of an intriguing narrative. As José Cardoso Pires says in that part of the second slide, please, the slide, João.
Another one?
The other, not this one, the other, the second, please. He says, what matters is absolute but real in this book, and now José. And this is refers to Delfim, as you understand by watching the film, I think. But it of course, in all his work. There is a film, there is part of the history of cinema that proceeds exactly the same as the book of Delfim. And now I want the other slide, the third. But João, sorry, João. Now is the third. Sorry. The third one. This third one is a very film from history of cinema. Gates of Hell by Akira Kurosawa. It proceeds exactly at the same method as the book and the film of speech and also Fernando Lopes, the director, because the story is about the rape of a bride and the murder of her samurai fiancé, told from the perspective of a bandit, the bride, the ghost of the samurai, and the monster. Exactly as Delfim. Everybody has something different to say about the same event. Do you understand what I want to say? What I mean by
More or
this?
less. So, Annabelle, it's cut. You know, your discourse is being cut. I don't know why.
Oh,
Um,
I'm so sorry.
I don't know if it is the internet connection or so, but it is difficult. So if you can repeat the idea about the
Yeah.
Athletes of Hell and this movie, it would be good.
Okay. I will repeat. If you don't understand, please let me know that I repeat again, okay? So what I want to say is that this film, Rashomon, at the Gates of Hell, has the same methods as the film of Fernando Lopes and also as the book of Cardoso Pires, because it tells us the rape of a bride and the murder of her samurai fiancé that are recalled from various perspectives, from the perspective of a band, the bride, the ghost of the samurai, and the woodcutter. Like in the scene that everybody has a perspective, a different perspective about the murder, about what happened to the engineer, about what happened with the murder. Do you
Okay.
understand?
Okay, there are different perspectives on a murder. Okay. So
Yeah.
please.
So, however, in Delphi, although the crime, there is the leitmotif of the film and the book is not important because it will not be recorded in history of time. As Eduardo Prado Coelho says in the book's preface, now you can put the other slide, please, João. And I ask you to read, or someone there to read it out loud.
Can someone read, please?
Yeah, can someone read?
Okay.
The significant function of marking the passage from an age of fears, depressions, and grace to a time of clear rules, transparent agreements, and democratic sharing of goods. And this passage should be the great rupture of history.
Okay, rupture of history.
Thank you so much. We will talk more about this idea of rupture of history. But the incommunicability of worlds is evident between people, as if they lived in different worlds, in the difficulty of assuming changes and a transition that leads to a certain tragic irony. Tomás Palma Bravo is the last representative secular family, but leaves no descendants. It was a general custom to consider sterility exclusively feminine, but nothing guarantees us that it was the infant, the engineer, who was sterile. And this problem also announces the anticipated end of a sovereignty. You understand what I'm saying?
No, not really.
Not really.
So,
Okay.
so come again.
Okay, I will repeat.
Because
Thomas
when you
Bravo-
move your head, the sound goes away, you know. That's I think it's a problem in your microphone.
Okay, so are you listening me well if I do like this? If I talk like
Yes.
okay, so I will not move my head.
Don't move your head, yes.
Not move the head. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Let's start. So, the incommunicability of worlds is evident between people as if they lived in different worlds. The difficulty in assuming changes, attachment, tradition that leads to a certain tragic irony in the film. Tomás Palma Bravo is the last representative of a secular family, but leaves no descendants. It was a general custom to consider sterility exclusively feminine, but nothing guarantees us that it was not the infant who was sterile. And this problem also announces the anticipated end of a sovereignty. Lapidary and emblematic phrase of the engineer. Now, if you put the other slide, please.
The other slide.
This is very strong, this slide. This phrase is very strong. I warn it has a red light. Tomás Bravo. the legitimate woman is the closest relative that the man has, and between close relatives, connections are prohibited. But this is one of the strongest phrases of the film.
Yeah, it is what I was telling you about just now. Between relatives, there's no sexual relations possible. It's kind of incestuous, right?
Yeah. And this is very ironic because they want to have a descendant because of this idea of maintaining.
At the same time, it is a problem that unable to have a son. At the same time, it is a problem. So the woman is asked to play a role that is impossible. It is impossible to be a saint, to be a weak child without sexual relationships. It's impossible. It's only Virgin Mary, I think.
It's true. That's the irony of the film, the biggest irony of it. And she's accused of being sterile. She's accused of being sterile, but we never know. It's a mystery of the film itself. We never know because they don't have intercourse, so we don't know if the sterile is the engineer or is she, or nothing occurs. That's the big irony.
Where's the problem?
For Tomás Palma Bravo. For Tomás Palma Bravo, Maria das Mercês, the place of his fury, resignation, and an inhabitable woman is a tragic object due to the dryness of her womb, supposedly, and the death announced in the lagoon. The lagoon, that is a source of life and a desired place for Tomás' grave, ends up swallowing them, if the peasants' reports are to be believed. The contradiction is resolved by the narrator by telling the removal of Maria das Mercês' corpse from the lagoon, and so there are no doubts. The lagoon belongs to the engineer in life and in death. We can then think there are two great characters who are always present along with the main characters who surround and haunt them. And I'm talking about what? I'm talking about two characters that are not human, that are haunting all the characters. Can you try to tell me what these characters are?
What are the haunting characters? The haunting characters in the movie, you think?
They are not people.
Because this is a movie of ghosts, right? When in the beginning, the narrator arrives to a place where he hears that some people died. And in the following moment, we see that those same people talking and moving around and interacting. So it is a movie about ghosts, about someone that died, someone who is remembered. So in this universe of ghosts, who are the most haunting characters, we think?
There's no right or wrong. You can try. It's like a game.
Yeah, you can guess. You are free to guess. What do you think?
Yes, the servant.
The servant.
Yeah, but it can be a ghost too. Absolutely, you're right. Absolutely, but they are characters without life. They are characters without life.
It's already there from the beginning, so it's a kind of a haunting creature.
Yeah,
it doesn't have that, so it is disabled to a certain point.
I can tell you, and then if you want, I can tell you now because it's difficult, maybe. But when I tell you, I think you understand what I'm saying. These characters are the lagoon and the village, the square of the village. Gafeira, it's the name of the village, and the lagoon. Gafeira is a place that does not exist, but which etymologically connects to the place of the lepers. Like the Portugal of the time, we can think.
Okay.
We does have a figure of style called prosopopeia. I don't know how to say this in English. João, do you know what prosopopeia? Maybe it's prosopopeia or something. I tried to find out, but it's like a figure of style that means the personification of inanimate objects that doesn't have a life, but have a life, in films or in
I think
literature.
it's personification. If you go with personification, you can.
Personification. In Portuguese, we call it prosopopeia, but personification is the more accurate. Yeah, you're right. Thank you. Right. It's like it's very simple to understand if you think about the houses that are alive in horror movies. When you see a horror movie when the house is haunted, like a person that haunts. It's like it's what I want to tell.
The most haunting place, the most haunting character is the lagoon. You say.
Yeah, the lagoon and the square also in the book and in the film. Both in the book and in the film, the emotional charge is aroused by pleasant and fertile, but at the same time tragic landscape, essentially translated through these two places, the lagoon and the square. Space is strongly symbolic in both works. The lagoon gives life and death, hides and reveals bodies, a certain society being diluted and lies between the land and the ocean. Path for freedom. The freedom is like the ocean, but we have a lagoon, not the ocean. We are not yet in the ocean, like this place of rottenness that haunts everybody.
Yes, I see what you mean. But at least there's some hope in a lagoon, right?
Yeah, right.
because there's a connection to the sea. There's an escape.
There's
somehow.
an escape.
We are in a landscape that is changing a lot. A social landscape. Those who rule today don't rule tomorrow. So we are in a social landscape that is changing because of the sea. There's a connection to the sea. There's water coming in and water coming out. There's some very small changes that can be noticeable. And the book and the movie talks about this, about a landscape that seems the same, but is changing. The changes are inevitable because of the connection to the sea.
Yeah, totally right.
It was in closed waters, right? It was completely closed, so it wouldn't change. And what Annabelle is saying is that there is a metaphorical kind of connection between this lagoon and what is happening socially in that community. See?
Yeah, it's totally true. The director Fernando Lopes says, I quote, "The lagoon is always saved because it always comes back to life." It's like thing that is linked to what you are saying, João. Totally. And so, notice that also in the film, the lagoon is always present. When it is not visually, its presence is transmitted by the soundtrack. The sounds of birds and frogs often invades the haunted house. Maria is prison, becoming a ghost herself. You understand? The soundtrack of frogs and birds always invading the haunted house of Maria das Mercês. that
Yes,
functions like a prison.
that has a lot to do with what I was telling you. Turning a book to a movie, it's making all sorts of trying to say visually what the book said literally. It's not easy. So we get these visual hints that and also from the sound that help us getting the story. You know, the sound is important. The visual metaphors are also important, like the veil that I talked to you earlier. So please,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah.
So it is
Thanks.
it is not a book, but it is related to the book. It's trying to say the same kind of things, but differently. It's hard. It's a puzzle, you know, it's not easy.
Yeah. Not easy. It's true. So this circularity of time hovers not only over the lagoon, but over the filmic narrative and the book becoming eternal. On the other hand, relations between people are established according to a hierarchical criterion of power. Land in Udelphi, the paternal evoked and denounced takes shape through the perception of land people, embodied by the character of Tomás Palma Bravo, the infant, a kind of timeless owner of it all, who is, I quote from the film, owner of a pond, a house, a jaguar, 2 dogs, a servant, a woman. You know this paternalistic view of man. What is the great figure of the history of Portugal that the novel film invokes?
Sim.
Look at the date it was written, 1968. The relations between people are established according to a hierarchical criterion of power, land ownership. In Udelphi, the paternalism evoked and even denounced takes place through the possession of land and people, embodied in the character of Tomás Palma Bravo, the infant, a kind of timeless owner of it all, who is, I quote from the film, owner of a pond, a house, a jaguar, 2 dogs, a servant, a woman. At this point, what is the great figure of history of Portugal at this time that the novel film evokes? Do you know there was a dictatorship, a man who ruled in Portugal at this time, precisely almost ending to be replaced by another dictatorship in Portugal at this time. It was Salazar. João, have you told them about Salazar, the great dictatorship?
No, not really. You can go into that.
So this was a long dictatorship that occurred in Portugal, 32 years of dictatorship, began in 1926, for instance, for this time, and ended it in 1974. But the first dictatorship that ruled the most time was Salazar. And the character of the Delphine, Tomás Palma Bravo, is like a metonymic figure. It's like a representative of this paternalistic and strong figure that is the representative of the Portugal of the time, you know, the dictator, the great dictator Salazar. So it is impossible to not associate Delphi with Salazar. And see how ironic is to name Delphine the character who embodies him, rich and with only apparent dignity, because it's apparent is not a noble man. We think it apparently it is because he has a wife, he has a big house, he is the owner of everything, owner of the lagoon, owner of everything. But really, in fact, he has no inner dignity. It's like fake, you know. We cannot fail to think about another book from Cardoso Pires, Cartilha do Marialva. I don't know very well how to translate this concept of Marialva, but I will try to do it with the book. Can you please put the slide, João? Thank you.
Yes.
That describes what a Marialva is because Cardoso Pires tried to explain us what this concept of man is in this book that is a historical literary investigation he made, focused on the study of this sociological and mental character type. And the books begin right away with its definition. Can't anyone please read it?
Read this.
Anyone?
We are running out of time, Annabelle. We have 10 minutes. I don't know if it
Only
is.
10 minutes. Okay, don't worry. It's like a playboy, you know, a playboy. The definition we have today of a playboy, you know,
Yes.
something like that, but traditional in this kind of characters.
It's like a playboy, but in the 60s. It's
Yeah. In the 60s. I think
it's a kind of a worse kind of playboy. You know, that's the main alpha. This was Cardoso Pires was completely obsessed with this kind of man that was very noticeable in this society, the society where he grew up. Cardoso Pires. So he was always trying to criticize this kind of toxic masculinity, as you would say today. Now, this man that overcomes the other man and overcomes women, of course, yeah, I think toxic masculinity is a good kind of way to speak about Maria Alva.
Yeah, you're totally right. Thank you so much, João, for the explanation. Okay. Perfect. So you can put another slide because we don't have many time. So I will talk a little bit with the slides. Thank you. So we have an episode that I want João to see and then explain to you because it's very interesting. It's lots of writers talks about Delphine. And it's so interesting what they are saying. So if you please, I know you don't understand Portuguese. That's why I think it's good for João. And I will pass him the PowerPoint and he gives to you the PowerPoint. And it explains why the book was not censored, because there was a censorship in Portugal with the dictatorship. And there are parts of the book that are very, very strong. And I thought, this was not censored. It's inexplicable. But the censors did not understand the meaning. They did not understand because the book is very dense and very close, very tight to understand. You know.
Yes. The book came out in '68. In '68, we had still a dictatorship. We had censorship, but still the book was published. You know. Why? Because the censors could not understand the book. That was what happened. They didn't understand what they were reading, you know, and they weren't very good readers, you know.
So there's a lot of links we can do with Portugal of the time, dictatorship, or Salazar is like the dolphin. The fog that is always surrounding the film. Did you saw the fog? The fog can be linked to this obscurantism and lack of freedom of thought and action that the Estado Novo, the dictatorship, the Portuguese dictatorship imposed. So it is it's very symbolic, the fog, because after Salazar, in September 1968, Salazar was replaced by another dictatorship, Marcelo Caetano. And the people hoped that amongst the fog, that can be the savior, will arrive a new savior that could save Portuguese people. But this new savior, we then knew that was not very good too, you know. But people was hoping that this savior comes from the fog. So the film and the novel is very symbolic in this way. You know,
and
like
hopeful. And hopeful. Yes.
Yeah. And hopeful, that's it.
Because at the time the dictator was annihilated because he had an accident, you know, and so he was substituted by a second dictator. And people were hopeful to perhaps Portugal is going to open now in 68. It's going to open now to a democratic regime, but that didn't happen. But the book is still hopeful. It seems hopeful to me.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. So in reality, you know, this quote I put here from Cartilha do Marialva, it's about the feminine character once more, because see what they are saying. It's like this toxic masculinity that your teacher João was telling before. It's like this, you know. Resignation is the greatest virtue of a woman in the eyes of the perfect Marialva. And it's the virtue, this virtue, it's common to all dictatorships around the world, I think. So going back to this female character, Maria João Seixas was part of the film's directing team. And notice this female character was not that developed in film like it was in a book. So for this reason, Fernando Lopes added a sequence that is not in a book. The sequence where Maria das Mercedes talks with a friend in the phone. You know, this sequence is not in the book. It's something part of only of the film. So I started by thinking about the great. Did you understand this?
Yes, yes,
Oh,
yes.
yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
It's a very
Oh.
strong scene. That
Yeah.
sequence is really, really strong for Maria das Mercedes, for the understanding the character. When she says during the phone call that there are times when she forgets her own voice. You know, that's really tragic when she feels her pain, you know. So that's it's a really important sequence, I think.
Yes,
And
it is.
it
Yes.
doesn't exist in the book. That's what's good.
She could be real.
Yes, she was being real, of course.
Mhm.
And that sequence doesn't have an equivalent in the book. It was made up for the movie, you see. So once again, the movie is coming up with new ways to portray the same character, you see. Here it's like with a monologue talking on the phone.
Yeah.
So,
I started by talking about the greatest similarity between book and film. And now what about the difference? I think the main difference, it's that I got the feeling that the director had to proceed with numerous ellipses. And I'll talk very briefly about this. Do you know what an ellipse is? Ellipse is when the ellipsis can be defined as the intentional omission of a fragment of history, time, or any other element deliberately left out of the narrative. On the one hand, a film made only of ellipses would not exist. On the other hand, filmic narrative has always to have ellipses because it's only in primitive cinema what was filming in real time was possible. For telling a whole story, we need to cut parts of its history to tell what we want to say. It's not like in a book. You have to make cuts to tell what you want to say. You know, that's the main difference. And with this novel of Cardoso Pires, it has many, many details. When you see, it's like a labyrinth, it's like a maze. You get lost in the stories. It's very dense and complex. So the director had to do numerous cuts of parts of the history, you know, to do this film that resulted so well. So we have, you can put the other quotations, the other slides, please, João. Thank you so much. So this, because this quotation I put there, the other, please. This, no, the other, more up, please. Up. Delphi, up, even up. No, this, you are down, but I want you to get up. Yeah, this. Oh, this.
So it
this
was
okay.
there already, or Annabelle.
There already, sorry.
Já
Já estava, okay, I didn't understand.
estava, cuidado no
This is
bolso.
just to say that it's not fair to compare a book with the film. That is not fair to compare a book with the film. That's a quotation I like very much because of it. And the others, we don't have time. So I please ask João to share this PowerPoint with all of you so that you can read by yourselves. I don't know how much time do we have, João, to talk?
2 minutes.
Okay, it's time to wrap it up. So if you please share this PowerPoint with all your students, because these quotations shows very nicely how the director do and what he thinks about the book of Cardoso Pires and how he did to make all the film with all these difficulties of adaptation, the book to a film. And then you can put the PowerPoint lower, please. Thank you so much. This is the trailer of the film. I put here the trailer because the trailer says exactly what João told you before, your teacher. He was told, no, not this, the other one, this is the link to the trailer of the film that ends up with this hope that João was told you. Because the ocean is like April 74, you know, when dictatorship in Portugal ended. It was the final hope. So the film adds something that the book could not have, because Cardoso Pires, the writer, was not guessing what would happen. And what happened was the end of dictatorship in 1974, 25 April of 1974. And the book ends with this flood of ducks flying over the skies, like an image of freedom, finally the freedom. After the death, the resurrection, you know, this hope. And I advise you to see the movie that I put in the other slide, please, João. The other slide, the last, one of the last. This about the Herdade, the estate. It's a movie by Tiago Guedes that is very similar to the Delphine in design of the character, the main character, the big landlord. And it's very interesting. They made a series too about this. I don't know if it's easy for you to see this with Portuguese subtitles, but we see. And in the other two, I just put the sources and the bibliography for, I don't know, it's in Portuguese, but maybe one day you learn Portuguese.
And the regular.
Yeah, one day maybe
okay,
you can.
Thank you so much, Annabella. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure.
I don't know questions for Annabella. She can answer. I have to repeat your questions because the microphone is here. So, okay. Come here, and present yourself to Annabella. Annabella, this is our student. See, this is my dear friend.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Nice to meet you.
The movie is full of miseries and ironies, and you know, it started with the storytelling we got, and the descriptions with the character. That's what I have noticed and observed. And apart from this, we got the description of the husband, not that person there. So it was the fall of him. And I noticed, I mean, it could be like, you know, he could be a hypocrite. I mean, he talked about the morals and values, you know, he gave the example of his uncle who killed the, like, you know, who did not appreciate the daughter for dishonoring him.
Tio Gaspar. Do you remember Uncle Gaspar, Annabella?
He
The
also,
ancestor.
The Uncle Gaspar in the of Tomás da Palma Bravo. The one that disowned his daughter. That's what.
Yeah, I remember.
He was also like him.
Yes.
Yeah.
However, like, you know, the mentioning of lagoon destroys, it destroys. So he was mentioning that I would be buried in the lagoon like this or like that. And we just later on realized that, you know, the wife also entered her life like that, you know, like going there.
Yeah, he wanted to be buried in the lagoon so that he would become eternal, right?
Yeah.
Like a saint. His body wouldn't decay underwater because it's so low that no fishes get there. So that's the He was trying to be eternal, the eternal prince, right? Eternal prince of the land, the owner of the land.
And the
Yeah.
last,
It's the dream of every owner, landowner, right? Is to be as immortal as the land you own. That's the dream. That's the dream.
okay.
Yeah.
So the adaptation, I mean, the book was written in that period. It would have, like, lots of discussions of the characters and the things around it. However, when they decided to make a movie, to put everything in the time frame, like for a 2 hour, how, like, is it like, they did the justice with the book, or they changed some sort of
They
plot, or
they found they I don't know. Do you want to answer this, Annabella? Is asking what was cut and what was in the movie. You know,
Okay.
so that
Oh,
there were it had to be very strategic in what to keep
yeah,
and what to cut,
because yeah,
because it is a very
because
complex kind of literary.
it's so complex. Just to show you how complex it was, because Cardoso Pires was a journalist and also likes history very much. So it is a novel, but the book is a novel, but like he loves history so much, he puts endnotes in the book, endnotes with maps and with geography aspects. And the director saw that
Like
and
he
put
did in
this.
Balada da Praia dos Cães also, that we all read. Do you remember? He adds
Some
scientific
endnotes and yeah, scientific
scientific,
things, and it's
yes.
so difficult. It's a major work. But as you can see then in the PowerPoint, in the quotations I put there, the director also says that it's a privilege to adapt short stories of Cardoso Pires, because they are very visual, they are very cinematographic. You can imagine them in your head when you are reading. But the problem is that they are so intrinsic,
So,
so
in your
complex.
opinion, what changed from the book to the movie, Annabella?
They cut, they cut lots of, for instance, there are only two flashbacks. There are only two flashbacks in the film, and in the history of the book, there are lots of flashbacks, lots of interconnected things. There are only two flashbacks in the movie. If you saw the movie again, this back in time, there happens only two. One just for presenting the characters in the beginning of the movie, and the other more to tell the story of the infant with more details, but in a linear way too, telling in a linear way, And this doesn't happen in the book. In the book, we are always flashing back in time, going back in time and going forward. And this is very difficult, So Cardoso Pires opted by this, just putting two flashbacks and then telling a linear way, the story in a linear way, and
Yeah,
um,
but
and capturing these symbols that are very subtle. In the book, there's a story about an ancestor with red sheets, and we see in a lagoon Maria das Mercês with a sheet, red sheets. Do you remember this? And
the
flows
veil,
with
yes,
the wind. This is a
with the
mention
veil,
to the book
the veil.
with the veil. Thank you. This veil. Yeah, yeah. And this is a mention to this patriarchy related with blood too, because
But she
they are the.
always has layers on her
Mhm.
body. She has veils.
Yeah,
She runs curtains to
yeah,
to have a private moment with herself, and she goes to the church with a veil. So she's always covered. She's a
yeah.
mystery. That's what the movie is saying, is that she's a mystery. She's a mystery.
Yes, it
She
is.
was not able to be herself anytime. So
Mhm.
she remained a mystery because she died.
Yeah, and João, when you were talking about this kind of, he wants to be the master of all, of the king of the lagoon, and he wants to die in the lagoon. But ironically, who dies is the women. This is very strong. It's a strong message. The eternal is the feminine, not the masculine. It's like an irony too. It's like the power
But
is with the female.
well, from my point of view, I don't know. This is very personal now, Annabelle. Very personal.
Okay.
But from my point of view, I also read the novel and I love the novel. The novel is great. You should read it because it's really, really amazing. And I think the novel is much more unsettling than the movie. The movie, at the end, you almost get, of course, there are different versions of how things went on during that night, that tragic night where two people were killed or dead. But in the movie, we get a version that somehow becomes more important than the other ones, So we at the end we are
We get
almost,
closure.
we are more sure that the version where she had an affair with the servant, and then the servant died of natural causes, and then she went to the lagoon and died. That version seems to be more important or more
Well, yeah, you're true. You're right. I
more
think you're right.
physical than the other ones. In the book, that doesn't happen. One gets really unsettled. We don't know what happened. If there was a weird relationship between the master and the servant, that is also a possibility in the movie,
Yeah.
in the book, because there's a love triangle there. And
But in the film too, we can think that he
endless
doesn't like the
possibilities in the
women.
book.
Yeah.
And the movie is somehow resolved, I think, more resolved than the book.
Yeah,
This
agree
is really personal. I don't know.
No, I agree. When you read the book, that's why it's more complex, the book. And the poor director had to do choices and to tell the
Well, not
story.
poor, because the movie is amazing also. So
Yeah.
it's a
The
very
poor, I think
powerful
poor.
reading. A very powerful reading.
I was just saying poor because I'm in his skin. I get crazy how to adapt this book into a film. It's very hard. It's very difficult. I don't know how to do it, but it is a brilliant film. It's one of my favorites of all of Portuguese film. Yes, it's one of my favorites.
Thank
It's
you.
very
Thank you.
well done. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
do you
Thank you.
have any more questions? No? Shall we end for today? So now we are, thank you very much, Annabella,
Oh, thank
for
you.
joining us. And
Thank you so much.
and we will see each other next week. Next week we will have another guest called Dina Duke, that some of you already know from the book club. She's going to be here to talk about the Balada da Praia dos Cães, and hopefully we will have better sound conditions. This was a little bit challenging today. Nevertheless, you can listen to this lecture of Annabella in the YouTube, because we are going to put this in the YouTube, and you can listen again to what was said here at home. Okay, and so we can come back to these movies if you want. Okay, thank you very much, and see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you all. Thank you very much, my dear João Ribereite. It was a
Obrigado.
pleasure. Obrigada, querido.
Annabella,
Obrigada.